the moon and water meet somewhere close to harmony. When the world is sound asleep, something's gonna bring the change. Journeys we are meant to take, something at the edge of space, calling us to fly away. Don't you be afraid, everything will change. You and I, jumping off the edge. They say dreamers never die, so come and fly, come and fly, come and fly away with me. We're rising, we're falling, we're making through. We're climbing, we're soaring.
Hi guys, welcome to this week's edition of Bucs Banter. Talking with our Bucs fan Simon Convoy.
Guys.
And obviously we're going to cover the, I don't know how you lost it, but the Bucs will find a way. The loss to the Green Bay Packers, basically giving Green Bay that extra win possibly needed to actually make the playoffs when Aaron Rodgers comes back in week 15.
Assuming he does. Yeah, this gives them a shot. They've got the Browns next week. That you'd think they should win that.
Yep. So thanks to the Bucs, the idea of very angry Aaron Rodgers coming back into the league is a real thing. Right, so let's go over the game in general. Watching the first half, Bucs defense was a bit. Well, it was first half defense for the Bucs. Kind of
they played quite well.
Yeah, but while we were watching, you were complaining about it.
I was complaining about the usual things because it's very much force of habit at this point. Bad pass rush, a lack of contain. If there's one criticism you could have of the Buccaneers defensively this week, it was the gap discipline was really bad. Those few games where we got run all over early in the season, which they seem to have sorted out in the last few weeks, it came back again. And it's one of those situations where the coaching staff just needs to get a proper hold on this group, especially the safeties and the linebackers, and just say, this system is about gap discipline. Like, let the plays come to you. Do not try and force plays, because that's how mistakes happen in the run game. And that ended up being the difference maker in this game, along with other things. But in terms of the defensive side of the ball, that's simply where the issue lied.
Yeah, indeed. And obviously the biggest story going into this week is the return of Jameis Winston. From what I understand, he played fairly well for a guy who's clearly still a bit injured. You could see it on the field, at least when I was watching. The injury.
What you saw though was an injury he sustained in the game. The shoulder looked fine. I didn't see any. I think the Bucs were quite relaxed in terms of taking deep shots in this game. Whether that's because of the injury or actually the fact, it could be a combination of things, frankly, because we couldn't pass protect at all. I mean, the protection was absolutely disgraceful. Probably to be expected with DeMar Dotson and Ali Marpet out, the team's two best linemen. And I'd argue the only two good linemen that they've got. So they couldn't take deep shots. So whether that was because of the protection or Winston's arm, and also the short stuff was working. So, there is a whole combination of factors that make it tough to say whether that was because of the shoulder or not. But yeah, he got hit so much, he ended up doing something to his ankle or his legs, and clearly was not moving comfortably at all.
No, I think that's what I noticed, because I didn't watch the first half because I was watching 3 other games instead with playoff implications. This one did not have playoff implications.
It may do
for the Packers, not for the Bucs. But generally speaking, let's talk. Generally, first half, obviously, the Bucs issue this season has been very similar to a lot of teams. Notably, obviously, the Titans, where they'll either play one of the two halves well and the other half just terrible. So first half, how'd it go?
first half played quite well. The problem in this game for the Bucs offensively, the pass protection I've already mentioned, was just some iffy play calling again. We ran the ball incredibly well, particularly in the second half. I think Peyton Barber, you probably, based on this performance, have to just go with him as the number one back for the rest of the year. He showed me something in this game, and he's ran the ball reasonably well as our number 3 guy most of the year. But what he did differently to what the other guys, Doug Martin has been dancing around in the backfield a little bit. He's been a little bit tentative, looking for holes that just aren't there. I like that style of running when you've got a level of run blocking that allows it. We don't have it. Barber was not messing around. This was good old-fashioned running forwards, first semblance of a hole you see, go in, lower your shoulder, fight for some extra yards.
Yeah, just
nothing fancy.
Do the Marshall
Nothing
Lynch
fancy.
thing, run into guys.
Yeah,
get
nothing fancy, but it was effective. I think he averaged over 5 yards a carry, or was close to that number, which is what you're always looking for. Kept the chains moving consistently. It was by far the most balanced performance the Buccaneers offense has. But the play calling was a bit spotty. I think the team had more opportunities, perhaps play action. Whether, again, that comes down to the lack of trust in the offensive line, not wanting to put Jameis under too much, into positions where he might get hurt more. That could have been a factor. But I think that was a mistake. And also when we got into the red zone, we just decided we were going to throw it, which, again, a bit strange. That's probably what ended up costing the team the game. They were able to move the ball pretty consistently in this one, whether it was through the air or on the ground. But inability to finish drives let the Packers stay in this one. But it was good to see the Buccaneers going to a bit of a shorter, quicker passing game. I've been saying all season long that they need to do a bit more of this kind of thing. It was the first time we've seen the Buccaneers playing quite horizontally. A lot of screen passes. And we're very effective doing it.
Yeah, it speaks to, obviously for teams doing the quick pass game, it also means obviously running down the clock and giving less time of possession to the opponent.
Oh yeah,
so it's an art form Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, and Peyton Manning have perfected over the years.
And the Buccaneers dominated time of possession. I think at the end of the game it was 37 minutes to 23. Had double the first downs, almost double the yardage that the Packers had. It's just one of those games that you win 9 times out of 10. And the Buccaneers found a way to make it the one. Jameis did have a couple of iffy plays because he's Jameis Winston. That's just how it goes right now. Still clearly not eliminated them from his game. The fumble, at first I thought it was a terrible decision on his part. It turned out he was basically strip sacked, but I think he still could have done a better job protecting the ball there. It's not one of his obvious, Jameis Winston had a brain fart ones, of which, there's many. This was one that you could probably see a lot of quarterbacks making, just trying to throw the ball away when they're getting tackled.
Yeah, I think I remember you during the game saying, God damn it, man, just take the sack. Don't try and make
Yeah, you could. It was a tough one because I don't know how much awareness he had of the guy coming up behind him. And that's what makes those ones a bit difficult. Because he's rolling out to his right, and whether he knows the defender's right behind him, ready to get that ball out, I'm not so sure. But if he does feel the contact before he attempts that, he should just eat the sack, especially as the Buccaneers were in scoring range.
Yeah,
near to it at the time.
Yeah, you look at quarterbacks like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, even Drew Brees. If they feel the sack coming, they just wrap up the ball and just take the sack. They can throw it back out of it. They'd rather not turn it over.
Peyton is the best example I've ever seen of a guy who just realizes he's about to get sacked and just lets himself fall to the ground.
Yeah, and it's
like he was aware he had. He was well aware he had a 0 elusiveness rating.
Yeah, but the difference being obviously Peyton and Brady can throw themselves out of 2nd and 15. They're not really too bothered about that.
Oh, the Bucs were quite efficient on 3rd down in this one, but as I was saying before the game, before the game, before the recording. This was, I'd say, easily the Buccaneers' second best performance of the season, behind the Bears game in week 2, where the defense played pretty well for the most part. A lot of that comes down to Hundley, who was horrific in this one. He was absolutely inept passing the football. It just looked confused. I don't know how you look confused against this Bucs defense, because they are not doing anything fancy or complicated. But he was very poor. I mean, he was very effective running the ball, escaping with his feet. Buccaneers didn't do a great job containing that. But considering that's all the offense was that and some runs, the Buccaneers probably should have done a better job.
And don't forget
overall.
The offensive line decision to single block Gerald McCoy.
Yeah, they were funny. They were just funny. I mean, they ended up not passing the ball enough for it to be a significant factor in that regard. But there are a number of plays. It's just a bad idea. I mean, the thing is, you against a team with a decent defensive line, say you're playing the Eagles or somebody, you can't double Fletcher Cox, for example, on every single play. Or if you're playing the Bengals, because their D-line's got some decent players on it, you can't double those guys on every play. When you play the Bucs, you can double Gerald McCoy on every single play, or just about every single play, as we saw the Falcons do the week before. The Packers decided not to, and as a result, Gerald made some really nice plays in this one. There was one against the screen that was a real top play. You don't see that kind of effort from defensive linemen too often.
Yeah,
just
and that,
recognizing it was a screen off the snap, like the guy lets him go, and rather than just chasing towards the quarterback, he instantly starts heading down the line towards the receiver and makes the tackle for a loss.
Yeah, and the that handoff to the running back that McCoy blew up within a second.
That was one of those prime examples of this. It's always a risk to single block him, primarily because of his first step. If he times the snap, a lot of offensive linemen don't even really have a chance. He'll just blow through that gap before the guy's even basically at his stance. And yeah, he was basically, as they say, back there to take the handoff for the running back.
Yep.
That was a heck of a play.
Yeah, it was. It was a silly play. So the Bucs are all but eliminated from the playoff race.
Well, they are. Yeah.
I don't think they're officially eliminated yet, but they pretty much are. Let's be honest.
I'd have to look. I would assume they are, because I just think because of the way the NFC South matches up, I think mathematically they've got to be. But who knows?
Yeah. In light of certain moving and shaking up of teams in the league, maybe the Giants, we're getting to a time of year where there's a chance people are losing their jobs. Is Carter keeping his job? I mean, assuming you guys lose out the rest of the way, because let's be honest, you've got nothing to play.
Oh yeah, if this team finishes, this is, for me, I think coaching's been a big problem this year. I don't like I've mentioned it just about every week. I don't like the adjustments this team's made. This is one of the games where they did a better job of that in the passing game and adapting to the run game. But I thought the red zone play calling was iffy. Defensively, I don't know if I wouldn't really even put it down to the play calling. I think the players were just ill-disciplined in the way they dealt with that overtime drive in particular. But I haven't seen a huge amount from the coaching staff as a whole this year. I think we've been outcoached in a lot of these games. And I like Cutter, but I would edge towards he's likely to keep his job at this point.
But I think
this next month I do think is significant. Yeah. I mean, Mike Smith, there's always a chance. I don't know if they're ranked 32nd after this week, but they're right near the bottom of the league, and I don't know if you'd have to think Smith's job is unlikely to be one that he'd retain, but he does, of course, have a good relationship with Cutter. They might just say there were a lot of young players this year. There were some injuries throughout the start of the season. They might, allow for some of the circumstances to alter that decision and keep him around. But I think this last month, I think this team has to play better. Performances like yesterday will go a long way if they can get the result at the end. But I think a big part of it as well is with Cutter, being the quarterback guy and the offensive guy, they're going to edge towards keeping him unless things really do fall apart because of the continuity factor with Jameis.
Yeah.
But, if they tank, if we have some of those, like when we're in that 5-game losing streak, the kind of performances we had against the Saints, a couple of those, and I think you're looking at a guy that's on the hot seat. If you can get a couple of wins, I think he's probably almost certainly going to be safe for another year.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen in the past young quarterbacks being basically massively let down by constant coaching changes. I mean, Alex Smith in San Francisco, way back when, was an example. They were changing the coach every other day.
They were, and that's the difficult thing, is when you are in that position. I've always been a firm believer that if you don't have the right head coach, then just cut ties. Because, all right, it might help your quarterback develop a little bit, having them along for another year, but at the end of the day, you're burning another year. Coaching is as significant as anything in this league. Coaching and quarterback play are the two most significant factors in my mind for the teams winning a lot of football games.
Well, assuming you keep the offensive staff on, I don't think the offense got the chance properly to show what it was made of this year. I think it's safe to say. I think a chance can be given. Defensively, however, in my opinion, I've said this since the start. I think the Bucs are playing an extremely outdated D scheme.
Wow.
And it's easy for opponents to just see.
You say that, but there's a lot of teams that run that scheme successfully. I mean, it's not enormously different from what teams like the Steelers and the Seahawks do, or even the Eagles. But
they've got the talent. This is the thing. I mean, it's all good playing.
Oh yeah,
scheme
we do
when you've
not
got
have
the talent.
Well, that's the thing. We don't have the defensive line to pull that stuff off.
No, and I think that's probably the issue. It might be worth switching, adapting to the players as opposed to forcing the players to adapt to a scheme. I mean, we've seen. I mean, the Steelers are a good example of it, but the Steelers have got.
Well, the Steelers have done a very good job of drafting, and you've got to. If you look at the Steelers over the last few years, they've been very aggressive in specifically drafting defensive players, and it's starting to pay off for them. Whereas Buccaneers we've got a very poor recent track record of drafting defenders. Part of that is down to the constant defensive scheme changes, I think, and as well as that, drafting bad players, which irrelevant of scheme. So there does need to be a focus there, especially with the offense looking, as I've mentioned before, the skill positions look pretty set. Although I do want to use this opportunity to have a bit of a rant about the Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson combination, because those two have not pulled their weight this year.
No, they have not. I mean, a Deshaun Jackson sighting should be a given, not a rarity.
Well, he's not. He's never been a high volume target. That's not what I'm expecting from him. And I don't know whether it's because of the way they're being used schematically, but these two guys should be torturing defenses. And really, when I look at this season, that neither one of them has been particularly productive. Evans is having possibly the worst season of his career. He's just doesn't look all that into things right now. Deshaun Jackson, they've not had that connection. But these two, I don't know, between them, both themselves and the coaching staff, they've got to come up with something, because Evans is going to get paid a lot of money by this team to be the guy long term. And this season just hasn't been good enough from him. And I'm sure he would be the first guy to admit that. And Deshaun Jackson has just been a bit of a bust in terms of a free agent signing because the production, he's not been given enough opportunity. I will grant him, but you know, these two guys, then next year, they'll both still be on the roster. You'd have to think, I can't see getting rid of Deshaun Jackson after this year.
Well, there has been
next year they need to get that together.
There has been a light at the end of the tunnel, though, with the poor performance from the two wideouts. You've had a new star emerge as a receiving threat, a legit receiving threat, Cameron Brate.
We knew this last year.
Yeah, but this year even more so. I mean, if you didn't, he's basically single-handedly carrying that offense when he can.
He's not been a high volume. What he's doing for this team, because if you look at his numbers, he's not getting a huge amount of catch or yardage. It's just he's an absolute monster in the red zone.
But you always, you've got two
both him and OJ Howard. I mean, if you look at the Buccaneers' touchdowns this year, I think passing wise, you're probably looking at just over 50% of them have been by the two tight ends in OJ Howard and Cameron Brate.
Yeah, well,
which is good, but yeah, those two receivers, if they can get them more involved, that opens things up more for those tight ends. It's one of those things I want to see it in the next month. I just want to see the offense come together a little more. Get a couple of big games out of Mike Evans, maybe get a couple of bombs to Deshaun Jackson. Then I'll feel good about life heading into next year.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm coaching, the Bucs or hell, even the Cardinals at this point. Yeah, this is the opportunity I take to diversify my offensive and defensive scheme, try things out that you wouldn't normally try out, see what works, see what doesn't going into next year, as opposed to playing the same playbook. But
it goes back to what I said last year. It goes back to what I said last week. Whereas on the offensive side, I really want to see more of OJ Howard and Chris Godwin. You know, they were our first and third round picks last year. I think they've both acquitted themselves quite well. They've just not had as many opportunities as I would like. So the Bucs know what they've got with Cam Brate and maybe give some of those opportunities to OJ Howard. He has been a little inconsistent with his hands. He's had some bad drops, but he's looked pretty good otherwise. And I think long term, OJ Howard, not just because of the investment you've made in him, but because of what he can do for you as a blocker and just as an overall physical talent, he needs to be the every down tight end. So they need to start, to me, getting him ready for that role. And because we're out of the playoff hunt, this month is an ideal way to do that. And Chris Godwin, I think, has more upside than Adam Humphries. I like Humphries a lot as a player, and I like what he's offered this team. But Godwin's got a lot more upside. Again, similarly, I want to see him perhaps given more opportunities as that number 3 wide out. Even as the number 2, maybe spell Deshaun and Evans over games, have Godwin out wide, because I think he's going to be a long-term fixture, or is the most likely guy to be a long-term fixture with Mike Evans as a wide receiver in Tampa.
Yeah, but whether or not it happens is a different matter entirely. So the Bucs record is standing at
4-8.
4-8 at the moment. So you're looking at fairly high draft picks. Have you had time to?
Yeah, we're on course for a top 10 draft pick.
Have you had time to scout out any college talent yet, or?
I have, and I'll grab my tablet here and I'll let you know. I mean, I will tell you now because I don't even need to check. I know the 2 guys I most want, and one of them is just because I love watching him play, and I can't imagine he'll be available or he'd be our pick even if he was there. And that is Saquon Barkley, because he's really fun to watch. But I don't think, whilst I do think the Bucs need a runner, I don't think it's the absolute top priority, particularly if we've got a top 10 pick. And Arden Key, that would be ideal for me. He's a pass rusher, as you might guess, because we're in rather desperate need of them. I haven't looked hugely into this year's cornerback group yet, but from what I've heard, it doesn't sound like it's a wonderful group. So maybe avoid doing that in the first round. But yeah, pass rusher. You've also got Bradley Chubb. I would be happy with him. I've not watched a huge amount of him, but I know he's sort of the consensus. Him and Key are the consensus 2 best pass rushers in the draft, assuming they both come out. The thing I'm hoping that will benefit the Buccaneers is this year's draft is really, really loaded at quarterback. You're looking at about 3 or 4 guys, assuming everyone who can come out of college does, that could potentially be top 10 picks. So that would be wonderful, because it could allow the Buccaneers to even potentially trade back, which would be perfect because this team does lack talent. But it could also push players down that might not otherwise get there, because as I've said before, highly rated pass rushers, they just do not fall out of the top 10, and even then some that aren't so highly rated get pushed up because teams simply need them. As a Florida State guy, I wouldn't mind seeing Derwin James, because I think Justin Evans had another pick at the weekend. He's had a reasonably good rookie season at safety. And James, I think, could just give the Bucs a potential real solid physical freak at strong safety. The kind of player you would be hoping would become like a Cam Chancellor type player. So that would be great. And Mike McGlinchey, he's the potential best tackle in the draft. I wouldn't mind the Bucs going for a left tackle. So those are my guys. I've not watched as much. Wait till the bowl season kind of finishes before I start hitting too much on the draft. But yeah, those are the guys. I've definitely watched a lot of Key. Arden Key. He's my guy at the minute. You never know though, because I kind of want to see if Chubb matches up, because he can get a sack and then I can say, yeah, we got a Chubb. And that'll amuse me. You got sacked by the Bucs, Chubb.
So, final question before we start wrapping up: how aggressive do you want the Bucs to be in going after defensive players in the draft? Because I figure the offense is pretty much set up itself, assuming there's not that much talent at tackle in the draft as always.
I think this draft is pretty good for interior linemen, which is great because that is the Bucs' biggest need. I've said if the Bucs are going after a lineman in the first round, it's got to be a high-end left tackle or someone that you project as a high-end left tackle, because Donovan Smith, whilst he's not great, he's good enough. So a high-end left tackle would allow you to move Smith to the right-hand side when eventually DeMar Dotson is a bit too old. Put Smith in the inside for now, which to me would be perfect because we'd be improving 2 positions, and then maybe go get a guard in round 3 or 4 and just get rid of J.R. Sweezy. I don't care how the Buccaneers do it, but they need to find a way because he's just not very good. I like his attitude, but he's just not great at football. So that'd be good. Definitely need some guards. But yeah, other than that, skill positions look fine. I think you can definitely look to take running backs later on in the draft. But defensive line, absolutely, ends are desperately needed. More defensive backs are needed. But you never know. We've got free agency before that, and I think if the Buccaneers are going to improve significantly for next year, free agency would be where it happens. But the only one player that you can sort of see that would immediately jump out as someone who could really inject a boost to this pass rush would be Ezekiel Ansah, but he's not been very productive this year. Was injured last season. It was the year before that where he had his breakout season. So I don't know. Someone's going to throw lots of money at him. And I'm wondering who it will be and if they'll regret it.
Yeah. I actually completely forgot what I was going to say there. I've had a Jameis brain fart. Hold on. Loading. Oh, yeah, okay. Apparently I've forgotten what I was going to say. So, So any final thoughts before we wrap this up? I mean, we pretty much thoroughly covered a losing non-playoff team.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of final thoughts, the Buccaneers, or I suppose for the way this video's gone, it's a good thing the season's over because this would have been a very, very angry run. Otherwise, it was a ridiculous game to lose. It's the kind of loss that you can only tolerate it as a fan when your season is already over, and then you can look at it as, well, we played okay and our draft position stays fine, which is just, a way of justifying in your head such a stupid loss that would otherwise make you very angry. But some signs of improvement, and Jameis Winston, if he can build on that performance, it just comes down to those 2 or 3 plays every game where he makes bad decisions, because there were a couple in this one where he was throwing it back across his body, trying to make plays that just weren't there when he could have just done something else. And he just needs to trim those down, because other than that, I thought he played better than I was probably expecting heading into the game. But and definitely that Peyton Barber kid, they need to keep having a look at him. And hopefully Vernon Hargreaves will be back soon, because he needs to show something.
Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up. I mean, we've probably given.
Oh wait, we got to talk about next week's game. The Bucs have the Lions next week.
You're gonna lose.
I don't know. They're not very good.
Yeah, but they're fighting to stay alive at this point. The Bucs are dead.
Yeah, but teams hate losing, and the Bucs gave a lot of effort last weekend. I mean, you could see at the end of the game, particularly the look on Levante David's face when that game ended, and I just feel bad for Levante. I really do. Both him and Gerald, they've been on these bad teams for so long. That it's just really disappointing. Especially Levante plays so hard every week. He deserves better than what he's getting in Tampa right now. But the effort was definitely there in this one. And the Lions, if people have been watching the podcast, they know how much we feel the Lions are basically Matthew Stafford and not much else. So I think you've always got a shot in those kind of games. And I think the Lions might come out pretty flat whilst they're fighting for their lives. This is a team that just gave up 44 points to the Ravens.
Yeah, but this is also a team that's going to play them that lost to an Aaron Rodgers-less Packers who put up 150 yards of passing offense, 1 TD and 1 INT.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I think giving up 44 points to the Ravens is worse.
I don't know.
Have you watched the Ravens offense this year?
Yeah, I have, but I think this is just more tyres to add on to the tyre fire that is currently, to be honest, 60% of the teams in the NFL this year.
The Bucs aren't a tyre fire. The Buccaneers are what they've been for the last few years, where they're a team that isn't terrible, but they are very, very accident prone, and they are a sloppy football team.
All the talent, but all of the clumsiness.
I wouldn't say all of the talent, because there is a big lack of depth, but they are a sloppy team with some clear holes. And to be honest, I think the Lions are pretty much the same team in a lot of ways, but their quarterback finds ways to cover it up. Oddly, both of the defences, I do want to say this actually, it's the interesting part of next week's game. Both of these defences have been awful, but really opportunistic this year. Both teams have done a great job of getting takeaways, but a terrible job in every other facet.
So this could be
And if you've watched the Lions' run defense lately, the Bucs could run all over them if you're looking at the performance that the Buccaneers gave this weekend. Because, man, that Lions' run defense is bad. It's really poor. But then, what the Bucs can do to Stafford, it'll be interesting.
Indeed.
Stafford could go ham.
Pretty sure next week's matchup is the thing I was meant to mention a minute ago and actually forgot. So there you go. Thank you for the save.
Yeah.
Right, I think that is it though. So we shall wrap this up. It's been just over 30 minutes, so.
Yeah, well, as you say, every week I can talk the Bucs for hours. Even when you don't think I can, I can.
Indeed. We've still got a podcast scheduled for this week. Should be tomorrow, hopefully.
Should be tomorrow. Might be Thursday.
Maybe, hopefully, might be getting the Titans report this week, since they're one step closer to actually securing a spot in the playoffs. After that win over the Texans, a sloppy win, but win nonetheless.
That's how it works this year.
But yeah, if you tune in around probably about 6:30, 7 tomorrow, hopefully we'll be doing the podcast on time. But timekeeping is not a strength of this channel, so we never know.
We're usually pretty consistent with the time frame it's done in, like on the day. It's just
but broadcasting within an hour slot, at any point during that hour slot,
should be fine. Anyway, it should be good. You should have a nice upbeat Arnie. We'll get to see you being depressed, having been dragged into the realm of the pointless. Welcome. You are now one of us.
Yep, just playing spoiler from now on.
Woo woo.
As long as that last game of the season.
The remainder of your season is the Blaine Gabbert audition tape.
No. The remainder of our season is building up to week 17, where we've got to face the Seahawks, and we play spoiler, and we win, costing them a playoff spot.
It's also the Blaine Gabbert audition tape.
Yeah, but Spike conquers all. Right. Anyway, yes, that's it from us. So we'll hopefully see you tomorrow.
Indeed. Have a good one, guys. And as always, like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon. I will update it this week since I'm off all week.
Lies.
I probably will.
You're going to hell for lying.
I should do. I will probably do it.
Yeah, pigs will fly, the Cardinals make the playoffs. Anyway, goodbye. See you next week.
Have a good one, y'all. Go Bucs.